everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honestly Bilal. I'm your host, Bilal Ahmed, and I'm a fourth-year medical student at the University of Toledo. This is Honestly Bilal, the show for the aspiring ophthalmologist, where I sit down and talk to medical students interested in ophthalmology. I talk to residents training in ophthalmology, and I talk to ophthalmologists in the field today. Today, I'm joined by a legend in ophthalmology, Dr. Ike Ahmed. He's a world-renowned complex eye surgeon, educator, clinician, researcher, innovator. He coined and developed what we know as MIGS today, or Microinvasive Glaucoma Surgery. He's been a visiting professor in over 31 countries and done surgery on 4 different continents. He's a published author. He's a winner of 5 film festival awards. He's been the first person in Canada to perform a laser cataract surgery. And on top of his many accolades, he's been the winner of the American Academy of Ophthalmology Senior Achievement Award. Dr. Ike Ahmed, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for joining me. And although we are not related, it's nice to be with another Ahmed today.
Hey, Bilal, man, it's a pleasure being here. Congratulations for your podcast and everything you're doing. Love your energy. Love that you're trying to drive things and share your knowledge. So it's a pleasure to be here. I mean, I couldn't turn down a request from another Ahmed.
Yeah,
so thank you.
That's the thing. I bet people are gonna think we're related, and I'd love them to think that, because not only would I want to, inherit your innovation genes, but also your hair genes. So, and I didn't get that. So,
Well, I mean, you don't know me that well. There's some things you don't want to be related to me about. So
okay, fair enough. Well, that's humble of you.
Thank you.
So let's start here. I mean, I was on Instagram yesterday, and I follow you, and I saw this post, and the caption is, "From picking up lenses off the retina, glaucoma implants in complicated eyes, suturing tattered iris and pupils, and using the most advanced intraocular lens implants in the world, to a day of LASIK. It's the most amazing job I could ever imagine. #ophthalmology." Clearly, you're somebody who loves what they do. So let's start back. When did you fall in love with ophthalmology, and how has your love for it grown with time?
Yeah, I mean, we are so blessed to do something that we love and have a passion for. Not everyone has the opportunity to do that. We're very privileged. And every day, I mean, I am just so grateful for the opportunity I have. It wasn't always like that when I was first in the medical school. I grew up typical brown family, born and raised in northern Canada, very pushing the education front, pushing medicine. My father, was a physician. And I got into medical school, not sure where I wanted to go. But I knew I'd like to work with my hands. I love to kind of see things, as a result of what I do physically. And so I was on track to be a trauma surgeon, general surgery. I love the adrenaline rush. For me, my drug is adrenaline. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs, but my adrenaline rush is what makes me do whatever I can do, my superpower. And I love the environment of that milieu, being in the trauma ward. But I happened to sort of do an ophthalmology elective, and actually this was actually introduced from one of my former colleagues. And really, once I kind of got into that room, saw what ophthalmology could do, saw the fine nature, the technical nature of what we can do with our hands, I just fell in love with it. I mean, the ability to kind of, work on a micron level to change or to protect someone's sight, the most sacred part of our human body and how we see the world. I mean, it was just an awe-inspiring moment. So from that moment on, that was my rush and that was my passion. I thought, I got to do this. I want to do this. And I really loved the surgical part the most, as far as what I could do with my hands in the eye.
Sure. And part of loving what you do, I'm sure when you love it enough, that's when good ideas come to you. And when you start realizing, like, if you're thinking about it all the time, then you start thinking about how you can improve it. And one way you've done that is obviously by, sort of inventing and coining what is now known as MIGS and microinvasive glaucoma surgery. So kind of talk to us about, when did you develop this confidence to sort of think outside the box, to do something new, to push new boundaries and to go against the status quo? When did you develop that confidence, and how can medical students develop that confidence early on in their careers?
It's a really good question, Bilal, and I kind of asked myself that question. I think first of all, there's probably not a perception about what I'm like just because of maybe the way I speak or the way I look. Innately, though, I am generally a reserved person. I'm generally an observant person. I observe before I just rush in and do things. And I think that's probably the first thing, just being a keen observer. In ophthalmology, the one thing I learned from the beginning is you got to be an astute observer, right? We've got to look at every single detail in a methodical fashion, and really look for the fine detail. I think that was the first thing. I'm someone who questions a lot. I grew up being very different. I grew up always being challenged about who I was and my identity. And I think I channeled that eventually into sort of challenging the norm. And I think for me, that was what drove me. I think asking the questions, making no assumptions. That's really important for me to sort of, find a better way. There's always a better way. I always knew there's a better way to do things, better way in life, better way in professional and work we do. And I think that kind of drive is what helped me. Now, I do say that I see a lot of people, even in my peers, that, really come in with, full charge, want to do things, probably with the best intentions, but sometimes I think ego gets in the way. And I think that's one thing I always try to balance out: humility with, being rebellious, right? If you can use those terms together. Sure. I think the respect is really important as we start off. And I think medical students have so much, richness in terms of thinking, coming into things without the burden of society, without the burden of all the knowledge that you're given to you. This is how you must do it. And I have always really detested that kind of education where you must follow what I do, follow 1 through 10, and that's the way you have to do it. And that's the way we're taught initially, of course. And so I think, that's the way that I think we need to start learning. And I think that as medical students and residents, honestly, that's, I think, where the most fertile grounds are. Most of my ideas, whatever I came up with, actually came to mind when I was a student, when I was a resident, as a fellow, my first years in practice. However, I didn't just go out there and just kind of, tell the world, no, you guys suck, you got to do differently.
Right.
We studied it properly, right? We built the evidence. We did it respectfully. We developed partnerships, collaborations, and do it the right way. I think too often, either we don't think we can do it, we don't have the confidence, or we're overconfident, and then our ego gets in the way. So I think there's a fine balance in it. That's one reason why I love to work with students and residents, because that's where the ideas often are generated. Coming in it a bit naively, a bit innocently, saying, why does it have to be this way, Because once you're out there, 10 years in practice, 12 years in practice, you're part of the system. You're part of the establishment. You may not know it. You're part of the establishment, and you can't even think properly outside the box. And so, always remember that what your role is. I mean, some of the greatest innovations in medicine have been through medical students and through residents. So don't underestimate what you can do. I can't tell you how critical that is, and for me, how important that was. And when I went through residency, it was, cataract surgery is hot, cornea is hot, retinal surgery, oh yeah, the big guys, doing retinal surgery. But glaucoma was the area that people were not so interested in, It wasn't a popular field, and it's starting to a bit more now. For me, I didn't go where the crowd went. I went to an area where there wasn't a crowd because I thought this is an opportunity to do something different. Yeah. And so, find what you can do and make that difference, and not necessarily what the crowd's doing. I think that's really important to take ourselves out of that and sort of think about what is really the need and where do I best fit.
Absolutely. And I think that's I mean, there's so much wisdom and advice in those sentiments that I think we could dive into that for a whole day and pick your brains about it. But one thing I want to touch on that you discussed is innovation. And I guess it's, to me, I feel like there's an artist in all of us. And I'm sure that you feel like when you go about your process of research, or when you're establishing new initiatives, that there's an art to it and that there's a creative process behind it. So when do you find that you're usually in your place of Zen, or the place where you find your best ideas? And when you find those ideas, how do you usually respond? What's your next step then?
Well, I would say the best time is any time, man. I mean, I was bike riding yesterday in the park, and I just saw someone on the beach by the water, and I had an idea. And literally, I pulled up my phone. I made a voice memo. Because I learned the hard way. I didn't want to type on my bike and hit somebody, right? So, and I literally made a voice memo, and I when I got home, I basically put some ideas together. I mean, anytime's fantastic, man. You're in the shower, you're going to bed, you're walking, you're talking, you're reading, you're hearing someone's lecture. I mean, make those notes, man. You got your phone with you. Yeah. Go to social media, fine, but use the way to catalog your ideas. I think that is the best time, any time. I don't particularly sit down and say, I'm going to sit down and think about what I want to do, or I have a great idea. For me, and my family will tell you, my mind is always running with ideas, because the next best idea in the eye may not be realized at work. It may be, because you're out in the yard or something, or maybe you're visiting a friend. Right. And so, really, the key is to keep your eyes open, literally, figuratively and literally. Right. Keep the antennas going. The ideas are out there. I mean, the thoughts are out there. It's just a matter of, I think, our ability to kind of harness that and realize it, and then start with it. So that's what I would say would be the first thing. Second thing is act on it. Simply just thinking of an idea. I mean, ideas, yes, are the basis of creation, but we got to move on it, right? So I often joke, I have this slide up that says, Ike, just do it, like the whole Nike thing. Yeah, right? Yeah. I mean, just the force of acting, begets further action. And so I think that's also the thing to do, and just, start doing something, writing ideas down, collaborating, and building something. I think that's where it starts. Now, most of the things don't end up going anywhere, but you learn something from that, either from failure or from partial success, and you apply it to the next thing. So I think that's kind of where for me my Zen place is, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I feel like when I was actually thinking about this interview and what I wanted to ask you, a lot of the questions I thought about came on a hike. So I feel like, I guess it's like you say, you never know when you're going to think about something that you can just write it down. So put it down in your notes on your iPhone and go from there. So Absolutely. I want to ask you about Prism Eye Institute, and, a big part of Prism Eye Institute and how it's been brought to where it is today that you've mentioned in talks is establishing really good partnerships. And, whether it's research, innovation, industry, or education, establishing a partnership, establishing a mutual bond where both sides can benefit from a situation where there's a common goal to be achieved. What is the best way to go about establishing those partnerships, and what have you learned about that in your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story, and I will say one thing. When I came out of fellowship, I came back to Toronto, where I did my residency, and I really wanted to be academic, university-based, and everything else, and there was no opportunity. Whether they didn't want me or whether there's an opportunity, I don't know. But, there was an opportunity. And I basically went out in the community and worked with a few of my colleagues. And basically we built what now is Prism Eye Institute, which is now, I think, a fairly significant institute. Right. And so, even though there may be setbacks in what your plans are, follow where your path is going. It's always a fine balance, right? If that path is not going the right way, you want to change it. But there are ways to actually adjust your trajectory, and it doesn't mean you may be on the same path, but your trajectory is a little bit different because of how you build around that. So, for me, that was something that over the last 15 years has kind of grown into, I think, a pretty significant enterprise. In terms of partnerships, I think the key is really, though, showing what your value is. It's one thing to say, hey, I want to work with you, Bilal, but I think, the only reason why, one of the reasons you want to talk to here is because maybe you think I have some value, right? So I think you have to be able to show and know your own value and what it's worth and what you can do with it, and be able to show for what it is. Now, it doesn't mean showing off. It means just doing great work.
Sure.
It means, building the case for whatever you're doing. I mean, for us, we're scientists, we're clinicians. It means, publishing our work. It means presenting our work, showing videos, showing new techniques. And that's really what I think is important to start your partnership, Sure. I think doing what everyone else is doing, again, isn't as unique, isn't as attractive, but I think do something different, even if it's something that people don't like. If you do it well, you get some respect. I'm not saying to do it just to get respect, because again, you should do it for your own internal satisfaction. That'll drive you. Yeah. But that respect does come when you do good work, and I think that's the first start that came with it. I did not go out and try to approach people and say, hey, come work with me. I was very blessed where I did work on my own, little guy out at the American Glaucoma Society meeting, presenting some crazy video in front of all these folks, right, that look very different than me, people laughing at me coming up there and saying, who's this guy? And then, they see my look, but then see the video and go, whoa, I could never do that. Yeah. Right? And so instantly, boom, maybe some respect was started there. Not that I want to show up, but just to kind of, see what I could do. I think that's where it started. And people say, hey, this guy, maybe has something interesting of value. So I think that's the first step. And I think the second step is being open, treating everyone with respect, whether it's a student, whether it's someone that's, coming in to clean our offices, whether it's industry or professors or business. I like to treat everybody as if they're my brother or sister, man. Like we're just talking about good ideas out of respect, and developing that connection. When you're talking to somebody, be wholly immersed in that conversation, right? There's nothing else around you. I remember when I was a student like you, Bilal, I went to a big ophthalmology conference, and I saw one of the biggest people in ophthalmology sitting in the lobby. I went up to them bravely and said, hey, I'm Ike Ahmed. I'm interested in ophthalmology. And the gentleman basically looked at me and said, hey, great, and then looked past me and was looking for somebody else, right? Yeah. You could clearly tell that individual was not interested in me and what I wanted to say, or even helping out. That was a moment where I thought, I never want to be like that. I want to always be somebody that, if anybody, comes in with chats, we're one-on-one here, right? The human connection is like the most incredible connection ever that we can witness. And just developing that, even if it's for 2 seconds in an elevator smiling, or if it's for a long conversation on a flight or on the internet, I mean, that can change someone's life, and it can give you so much inspiration as well. So, I mean, honestly, for me, it's really the basics of just human behavior and human relationships. And that's kind of how partnerships develop.
Sure.
The know-how, knowing what people do, understanding them better, and then really hopefully showing your value.
Yeah, and you know, I really have to commend you, because I was really nervous to do this interview, because obviously I've seen you on every social media platform, and I've seen you talk all over YouTube and stuff. But you know, when I sat down with you, you were so humble and you opened up the conversation to make me feel comfortable. So I appreciate that as a host. That means a lot to me, and you know, I think that's something that you can only learn that from just being a good person. You don't learn that from any you know, article or any scientific publication. So thank you for keeping your humanity with you. And really want to ask you something about, you know, the human process is failure. And, you know, I'm sure that along the way you've had projects that didn't work out, like you mentioned earlier. So how has failure made you who you are today? And has it changed you for the better?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like failure. I hate failure, right? I hate falling down, but we all do. And I can think of many failures, whether it's professional, whether it's business related, you know, I mean, and even personal. I think they're all examples of that. I too tend to learn from them and forget them, though. You know, I don't let them bog me down. I say, what could I have done better? How can I learn from it? And then I move on pretty fast. I probably need to maybe sit down and think about it a bit more, even perhaps when I do have failures. But for me, the key is about keep on charging and going forward. And not that forgetfulness is a good thing, but it's a way to protect yourself in some ways, not to get dragged down. Because I think too often, you know, no one likes failure.
Yeah.
But I think, knowing that you failed, failing fast, as they say, not letting it drag on and say, you know what, this is not working. Let me change something. And then moving forward, I think is important. I think that's really key. You know, when we're physicians and surgeons, we can't afford to fail. Of course, in medicine, we don't want to fail.
Right.
People's sight are at stake here, and so, you know, it's a very noble task that we have, and so I'm fiercely, you know, protective of that. And there's sometimes when you can't fail in business, for example, when particularly lives are not at stake, you know, or eyes are not at stake. And you have a venture, you have an idea, you know, if you fail in that, okay, it's not great. People maybe lose jobs, which is not great either, but, you know, it's not part of your profession. So I think there are ways you can kind of be a bit more, you know, a bit more protective, and maybe other ways where you can be a bit more in terms of risk that one can take. And of course, know the right place to do it. You know, we have a scientific method. We have a way to study these things. We have lab work that we do. And so I think these are all aspects of it. But there's no question, every day we fail. Every day we learn from those. We have to get, you know, I get back up, and I too tend to try to forget those failures. That's my own weakness. That's one of my weaknesses. I forget my failures. No,
I think that's probably part of your success. But that's good that you have at least the force, or the, you know, able to reflect on it and know that you have a process and it works for you. Dr. Ahmed, I have probably the most important question of this entire interview that I'm about to ask you, and it's something that I've been wondering. I think a lot of people have been wondering, and basically, what hair products do you use?
I get that question. You know what? My most common answer is whatever is in the hotel room, wherever I'm traveling. I've been asked that before. I say, yeah, I was at the Sheraton last night. I just grab whatever's in the shower there. You know. There
you go.
And sometimes I go to a hotel, they don't have any conditioner, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I just would do whatever. So yeah, I'm pretty low key. I need a haircut, of course. It's been 6 months, and it's funny because, you know, when I was in your shoes, I had a buzz cut, shorter than your hair.
Oh, really? Okay.
Number 1 on the side, number 2 on the top,
there
right?
You go. Okay.
Clippers. I could do it myself. And I got into residency, and I had a short haircut, but it was only during residency where I think I found myself a little bit, you know, where I'm like, you know, I've been conforming, and I've tried to be a certain way for all this time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna just, you know, say, what the hell, man? I'm just gonna let things go. And so, not in a bad way, but, you know, just not necessarily conform for the sake of conforming.
Yeah.
Not to be you know, just rebellious for no reason. So that's where I started, and then it never stopped. And now I think if I cut my hair, people say I lose my powers. I don't know what I'm going to do. I lose all my hair.
It's like a Greek mythology thing. So you got to keep it going. And I think that you established that it's not your hair that makes you. It's who you are, and it's what's in here, and then what's in here. So you know, it's been a pleasure, absolute honor to sit with you, talk with you, learn from you. Can you let everybody know where they can find you on social media, on Instagram and on Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, Ike Ahmed, there aren't too many around. You can find me, Ike Ahmed, on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. Social media has been an amazing tool. It's funny because I wasn't on social media for a long time.
Okay.
And eventually said, okay, you know, it's a good way to communicate. So yeah, it's very powerful. I think that find something that's unique though. When you're out there, post things that I think are going to be of value and that are unique. That's what I would say. And so yeah, I mean, find me, communicate. It's been an incredible way to keep in touch with people and meet people, even during this pandemic.
Yeah.
The amount of interesting people I've met just in the conversation on social media, and the collaborations as well. I mean, we even have some research projects that we've started in the last month, just based on collaborations from talking with someone across the world. And so it's an incredible power. Lately I will say I've been wasting my time. I've been on TikTok, which I think I'm going to turn off.
Because it's so addicting. I don't blame you.
No talent there, so for me at least.
Okay.
But yeah, for sure. I mean, I love to hear from people, and so keep in touch on social media. And Bilal, I do want to congratulate you, man. For what you're doing. I mean, you've taken some initiative, and you've taken some steps. You showed some good courage, some innovation. Those are the building blocks to do great things, and I look at that as a great platform for you. And so good luck with all that.
Well, I appreciate that's an endorsement that I'm going to cherish forever now. So, and I want to thank you because it took a direct message on Twitter, and I thought it was going to go nowhere. I said, all right, just ask him. So I asked Dr. Ahmed, I was like, can you do an interview with me? And he responded and said, yeah, well, it would be fun. And I think we had a lot of fun. And I had a lot of fun. So thank you one more time for joining me. And if you like and enjoy these videos, please comment, subscribe, share them with people who might benefit from them, medical students, residents, whoever. We're all on this journey together, and I just want to create some form of community and create something new and different. So I appreciate you coming on, Dr. Ahmed, and we look forward to hopefully someday meeting in person at one of these conferences where I won't bother you too much, but I'll definitely say hi. Oh,
right. It's never a bother, man. I actually enjoy more talking to those in training than talking to my colleagues or going to a fancy dinner. If you see me in a meeting, I'm typically not at the big gala dinner.
Okay.
I'm typically, at Subway or something, or on the street, just catching up, maybe even by myself, or with just, anybody, right? So for sure, man. And I wish you peace and security and safety and happiness to you and anybody else watching as well.